G'day, John.
I love it. I've just come back from my match here. The Gunners have won again. We're in great shape. Uh, Go
This is
Arsenal.
this is my Australian hat. We may explain this later.
I do want to say that I picked up this on my first trip to the UK. I guess it was my second trip. I went to talk at St. Andrews. That was my first trip to the UK. The
Yeah.
second one was to visit Swansea the first time, to set up my PhD studies. And I didn't have any gifts for my children. And I knew I had to come home with something. So I brought back some Doom Bar. I smuggled that back to the United States because they don't export Doom Bar, as all Americans will tell you who've tried to get to drink strikes drink. But which is funny because apparently Doom Bar is like Bud Light in the UK.
It's hugely popular now. I mean, it wasn't as popular when the strike books were starting to come out, but now it's just everywhere.
Yeah, it was bought by a giant firm. I'll have to put a link down below to my article about Doom Bar. But anyway, so I'm going through Piccadilly Circus, and I see it's a tourist trap. I mean, Piccadilly Circus is like every other shop is T-shirts and So I got myself a Arsenal hat. There we go, man.
Go Gunners.
Go Gunners. It's funny. I've worn this in Oklahoma City and really been astonished by the number of people that follow Premium League soccer in the United States.
Well, it's a big high school sport now, soccer, isn't it?
Oh, no, high school and college. Soccer suffers in the United States at the college level because of Title IX, because football will always be the most popular sport, and you have to have the same number of women's scholarships as men's scholarships, and there's no female equivalent to football. So if you have 40, if you're Division I and you've got 40 or 50 men on scholarship to play football, other men's sports suffer tremendously, and women's sports benefit tremendously from Title IX provisions. It's just a thing.
Yeah.
My daughter, I sometimes wear a VMI hat here. My daughter went to the Virginia Military Institute, and she could run like the wind. I mean, she won conference championships and stuff, but she didn't suffer for scholarship offers. But there were so few women at VMI, they had just gone co-ed that the NCAA actually suspended the requirement that they have an equal number, because they had more football players than they had women in the school.
Yeah.
All of them would have to be given full. Anyway, wow, we're really off on a tangent just from the start, Nick. right from the gun. All right, today's show. Let's talk about today's show. This is one we've been talking about for a long time, and a couple of months. And we didn't really know we'd have a need for this show, and because none of us could have anticipated, both of us could have anticipated that we'd have such great responses to the work that we've done.
And it's not just the quantity of comments is great, because that tells us that people are listening to what we're talking. But it's the quality of the comments.
Yeah, I mean, and we're gonna be talking about a lot of stuff that was sent in, to me in the paid subscribers, that we call it the moderator Backchannel stuff. I mean, Justin Clavitt stuff, and Sandra Hope, and Kathleen O'Connor, and and Ed Shardlow. I mean, Ed Shardlow really blew us all away. We've been talking about his stuff in asides during our talks about the Gorilla Murphy theory and the Ichabod theory. Ed doesn't want to come on the show, and we're going to honor his. What can we do? Can we doorstep him? Tell us about that. Tell us about that gorilla theory. Ed, we love you. Wish you were on the show, but we're just gonna use what you've written. He wrote up basically a post for both of his things, so we could use it. I do look forward to Ed's visit with you and Addie on the coast of the Bristol Channel, which has been swum since 1927.
Yeah.
You know.
Now, not my bit of coast, but my bit of coast has been swum. It's a little bit further along, but it's still a fair swim from my bit of coast. It was swum only
2 years ago.
A month or 2 months before I first told John, nobody has swum this channel.
Yeah, if you know anything about Wales, it is that south coast of Wales. Well, it's the course that they use for times and records crossing the Bristol Channel is from Swansea, and that is well west of where you are. It's an entirely different channel, really, than where you are. All right, wow, we are totally off the wall here. Let's jump into some of these comments, because we have a bunch of them that we want to talk about. Some of them, first week, first week responses. Some of them yesterday. We got this one from, was it yesterday, from Vicky, that was just like, whoa, I mean, the boxes theory had me just spinning. I was like, man. So let's just go. We're gonna read these, right? And then we'll. Oh, this is great. I haven't even got my.
Shall I read Ed Shardlow's Ryan the Gorilla? Such a great theory. So, I'm going to be Ed Shardlow. I'm going to say I came up with this. I did not come up with this. I'm nothing as inspirational as this I've come up with. So, Ryan the Gorilla theory came to me at the point in the book where Robin has an epiphany following an impulse to look up the meaning of a name. I think this was the Jalinda Violet realization, but I thought she'd suddenly realized the full extent of Ryan's dark side, with the significance being the previously noted meaning of his name, Sea King, suggesting a connection between him and Wade King. That theory seemed very flimsy at first, but on further examination, it might have some mileage. There are some notable differences between the attack in the Land Rover and the previous ones. Although we imagine the attacker wearing a gorilla mask, there's no mention of it. And in fact, it says she can see his face. Also, the Land Rover attacker makes no demands that she stop or leave it. She hits Wade with the pepper spray, which of course would be difficult for Ryan to cover up, but she didn't inflict any such injuries on the gorilla attacker. Wade clearly intends to hurt her, whereas the other attacks had no physical violence and look very much like they were just intended to scare her. And he follows with some points. So 1, it's hinted that Bramford knows about Robin's rape, and she says it's on the internet, but we never get any indication that King or Griffiths know about it. Strike and Robin never consider that the attacker might be someone who knows about it because they're close to Robin. That seems like an oversight. Point 2, the gorilla attacker never refers to a specific case. Murphy may be scaring her into quitting the job and getting away from Strike, whereas a suspect would want her to stop investigating their specific case. Point number 3, the police don't take the rubber gorilla and dagger for DNA testing. That's pretty strange, unless there's someone on the inside blocking the investigation. There's a bit of an issue. Yes. So there's a bit of an issue with the guy in the green jacket who presumably Robin can see isn't Ryan when he's on the industrial estate and outside her flat. Presumably that was Wade. So there would need to be some explanation for how or why Murphy is wearing the same jacket when he accosts her with the ceremonial dagger, but that's not insurmountable. Murphy would have been very surprised to encounter Matthew, who he knows from Massam, outside Robin's flat.
You know what that's about?
So I don't think Ed means Matthew. I think he means Robin's brother.
Martin.
Martin. Yes, I think
Okay.
that's what that is. The narrative very much prompts us to think there's something going on with Murphy. But then we put this down to his work issues and associated relapse, but perhaps that blinds us and Robin to another possibility. And if that is the case, then Strike hasn't just let Robin go to dinner with his romantic rival, but she's heading into mortal danger. Were his instincts subconsciously alerting him to the threat? Did he leave it too late to shout break again?
That's
it's a great theory. And I think when I first heard it from Ed, I was 50-50 wow and no, surely not. But Ed's
well,
put a
that's
lot
the sign of a great, that's a sign of a great
yeah. But
because every great theory, I mean, like
yeah.
Charlotte was murdered theory,
Yeah.
you have the exact same response.
Yeah.
Oh my, and no way. Oh my, no way. Oh my, no way. And that's where I'm at with this one. I think there's been an objection made on the same comment thread. I'm sorry I haven't got it right here at my fingertips, where the person said that there's a height difference.
Oh, but
that,
nobody notices height. That's fine. Nobody sees height.
That's right. We live in the height-free universe.
Exactly.
They've all got Engorgio charms, whatever, to make them bigger or smaller at will.
It's a series written by a vertically challenged author. Nobody's gonna notice height.
I'm sorry, she's only a ½ inch shorter than the UK average. So let's not call her vertically challenged. Anyway, there is a problem in there about the height of the things. But the thing that Ed's theory, which came out, he brought this up almost immediately on his first or second read of the books, was that we have narrative misdirection here in spades. The story is told, the voice of the story is Robin and Strike and their observations, and they're thinking about their thinking. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all you see. You don't get Ilsa's thoughts. You don't get Uncle Ted's thoughts. None of that. It's an expansion. We're used to just Harry's thoughts, right? Harry Potter. But here it's those two thoughts, and the brilliance of that so-called third-person limited omniscient view. It's not Strike and Robin aren't telling you the story, but you're getting it entirely from their perspective. It's not an easy perspective in which to write as a writer. Not that any of them are really easy, but this one has its profound difficulties. But if you master it, as Rowling has, what you get from it is the ability to totally distort what the reader sees and understands from what they're seeing. And that's exactly what we get here. We're totally consumed by Strike's, stick with the plan, idea. Don't let the other guy, beat you out of your plan. Go with your strengths, says Faux Moody. And that obsession for Strike is to beat Murphy, to get Robin. And so, as you said in previous discussions, Nick, he's totally different in this case. He has no interest at all in finding out really where Rupert Fleetwood is. It's how can I get Robin alone and have this conversation with her, which is, not the Avenger mode he's in now. He's in pure Cupid mode, which is an alien thing. He's I mean, if you think of Cupid as these little cherubs with wings, these little babies with wings, Carmen Strike is not a match for that figure. But so he's awkward in that role. But what Rowling has done in getting us to think like that is we don't see that Murphy's in the exact same mode.
No.
Murphy considers Strike to be, the greatest threat possible. And we see that most clearly, as we've talked about on the trip to Sark, where Murphy drops that magnificent text message to Robin, which totally, just sends her into a spin. That was brilliantly done he sent it just when he would think they would be alone, sitting down to dinner. I mean, well played, Ryan, right? But Ed's taken it a step further.
Yeah.
In saying that Murphy is doing everything he can to capitalize on Robin's mental distress, her PTSD, and trying to get her to pull herself out of the agency because she's fallen to pieces, and to depend on him.
Yeah.
Now, we already know that Murphy is a liar, and he suffers from alcoholism, and he has family issues, and he's being investigated by the Met. I mean, and the only thing he really has in his life that's of any value is his relationship with Robin. In his madness, right? Suffering from the disease of alcoholism, suffering from about to lose his identity as a Metropolitan Police officer, isn't he likely to do something crazy like the gorilla thing? I mean, and to stay, especially in that Masonic dagger thing. If he's not doing it, maybe he hires someone to do it, and hence the height issues and such. But he stays far enough away from her at that point that she can't really ID him or his stand-in.
No. And what I really like about the theory is when Rowling's going to twist your head around, and she loves to do that, she plays fair. So when I read these theories, I tend to judge the quality of the theories if I can see Slytherin's locket in Creature's Nest, or if I can see the diadem in the Room of Requirement. And this theory's got it. It's got that. I can see in a future book the readers and Robin and Strike going, yeah, why didn't the Met want the mask and the dagger for DNA and forensic analysis?
Yeah, and Ed's closer here in his write-up of this for us to share with all of you is that Strike intuitively runs down those stairs to propose to Robin. Not really a proposal. Marry me. That's not a proposal, but that's the imperative mood there. Imperative voice. So that's it was mood. So that he runs down the stairs because he intuitively realizes she's in danger. That she's going off to this meeting. And it's not so much all of his prospects he's about to lose. He's about to lose her. That he's not going to respond well if she says, I can't say yes right away. Let me think about it, etc. That's going to send Murphy totally around the twist. He's got everything on this box, with the shackle in it.
Okay, so this is Vicky, another of our amazing all-star commentators. So
and I should say that we don't know. I mean, I could look up Vicky's last name, but she hasn't shared that. Yeah. So she's just going to be Vicky here.
Yes. And she writes, thanks, John and Nick. Great discussions. Just to add another layer to your theory on Robin's dream, which seems pretty spot on already. Could there also be dark undertones to the dream, specifically the imagery of cuddly toys replacing silver Masonic swords and aprons within a vault where a body has been horribly mutilated? Masonic aprons are worn by men around the waist, and swords can also be a phallic symbol. This could be subtle foreshadowing of the adolescent girls, children trafficked, violated, and kept underground, to which Strike and Robin uncover and rescue later. Ooh. This is the nurturing, protective part of Robin, and the anteros, unconditional, giving love that Robin resonates deeply with and desires in her investigative partnership with Strike. She doesn't have this with Murphy, clearly, Eros, nor does she want to. I'm also reminded of the cuddly turtles crafted at the UHC, where babies born often from underage girls were trafficked. I had missed the turtles, but that's got to be a resonance, isn't it? Robin has been having recurring dreams of being locked inside the box at Chapman Farm. An investigation that took place at the same time as the Silver Vault murder. Ironically, while Robin was being shut in a box for trying to take down, unbeknownst to her then, a child trafficking cult, the killer Griffiths shut himself in a box to kill a man who wanted to save his girlfriend from sex trafficking. There's also
the reverse.
Yeah, exactly. There's also Margot Bambra, champion of women and children who loved her child, saved Theodosia from an ectopic pregnancy. I know, but and later killed her body covered in concrete, like Jalinda, and shut in an Ottoman box. Other thoughts? Ryan Murphy's "I'm so effing lucky" comment. His dad's Irish born and parents live in Ireland. Could it be a luck of the Irish thing? Original saying from the 19th century gold and silver rush years in the US. This would be ironic given his last name, Murphy, but maybe in books 9 and 10 we'll see how Murphy's Law enforcement tactics plays out. So Murphy's Law is the law that anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
The opposite of good luck. Yeah. We'll have to come back to the Murphy thing because I want to really focus on this box stuff. And really, first of all, hats off to Vicky here. This is just great. I mean, she mentions the conversation we had about Robin's dream, which, if you want to go back to it, it's on page 127, I think. But anyway, wherever it is, she's in bed with Murphy, and he tells her he's so effing lucky to have her, and she's, I love you too, etc. And she goes to sleep, and all she wants to do is get out of bed and text Strike. But she goes to sleep, and she has a dream of being with Strike in the Ramsey Silver, and all of the Masonic aprons and swords have been replaced by cuddly toys. And, we talked about that at some length about what that means. Vicky's add-on here to what we talked about was that is to link it with what happens later in the story. Basically, the phallic imagery being replaced by cuddly toys and that kind of thing. And with previous books in which we saw the same kind of thing at Chapman Farm, which is just great. And then she links it with the boxes. Which was so good, because not only do we get the box that Robin was put in, but we get the box that Margot Bamborough was put into. Now she makes a bit of a misstep, I think. You saw me make the face there, Nick. There, saved Theodosia from an ectopic pregnancy. Margot Bamborough's does not save Theodosia from the ectopic pregnancy. In fact, she diagnoses ectopic pregnancy.
Right.
That's right. And so and she goes, Theodosia leaves, and we presume that she dies.
Yeah.
From the ectopic pregnancy. I mean,
we don't know what the conversation is. You'd think a caring doctor like Margot, if she'd got it in the notes that she's diagnosed ectopic pregnancy, she would have said, "Let me call for an ambulance."
That's right.
Maybe Theodosia said, "No, my boyfriend's outside. We'll drive straight to A&E." We don't know.
Yeah, well, she didn't take her to the hospital herself. And we know what happens in an ectopic pregnancy if it's not taken care of immediately. You have an explosion of the fallopian tube, and not only internal bleeding and hemorrhaging, but sepsis. I mean, it's death. Especially in 1974, Nick. Right? I mean, this is a different era entirely in terms of medical care. So Margot Bamborough does not save Theodosia. Does not save God, the gift of God. she basically lets God die. And in the morality tale of Troubled Blood, which is really a Spencerian morality tale, she winds up in a box as the pearl. Now, that's, she's the pearl inside the concrete. Margot meaning pearl. It's from Margaret. That Margaret in Greek is the Greek word for pearl. So you have a silver image there because pearl is a symbol of the albedo stage of alchemy, that stage of purification. She's trapped inside that stage. 2 books later, we get Robin in a box, and she comes out of the box, the alchemical box. She's the pearl inside the box, and she comes up out of the box, and she is an entirely different woman. Robin in Troubled Blood, when she comes out of the box, is no longer at all put together. She has been totally shattered. She sees the child she's been searching for, and at that point, while she's caring for this horribly abused young person and mother, she realizes that Strike is there. She has this link with the king of the story, basically, and she's the king and the queen in the box is a huge alchemical image about the stage where the soul has been purified and is about to unify with the spirit. That's an incredible moment coming out of the box, and now we have a book where there's several boxes. There's the vault, there's the crate that Griffiths arrives in, there's the underground box where I'm forgetting her name. Is it Sapphire? Is in Iron Bridge.
Yeah.
These boxes in which women are imprisoned and rise up out of, and where men descend and are mutilated and destroyed. This is seems to be a recurring image. The cuddly toys thing. I was just thinking while you were reading that, Nick, that there's also the cuddly toys in Rowling's past. We've talked about that. About the turtle is the gift from her mother, right? That's.
Yeah.
This is cuddly toys are a real thing for Rowling. She wrote a whole book about it, right? This is in one of her best books, where the toys are in the land of the lost largely, and that where they descend into a world which is a little bit like a box.
Yeah.
So then this is an incredibly rich thing, and I can't pretend to have explored all of this really. I'm still spinning with it. I just want to say thank you, Vicky, because this is great stuff. Especially the thing about Yolanda being covered in concrete.
Yeah.
That's did the I must have read Troubled Blood 20 times. That was a big part of my PhD thesis, and I still think that with Deathly Hallows and Christmas Pig, it's the best thing that Rowling has written. And I didn't make the connection between the woman in concrete, not especially subtle, right? And there's that connection. Anyways, I'm just rambling, Nick. What do you think of this?
Oh, inspired. I think I hope in the upcoming books, Robin's new sweary psychologist is gonna have lots of things to say about that dream imagery. I think there's lots to say about that. And
about the experience of her in a box. If she's a Jungian, I assume she's Jungian because Prudence is a Jungian thing. So this is kind of the circuit that she's most familiar with. In that the Jungian thing, they'll be steeped in alchemical images and archetypes because that's what Jung did.
Yeah,
that's what Jungians do. And so when she starts, she's going to have to relate that trauma of being in the box. And she'll talk about that, how much is your life about being in a box, about being, forced by a man into a box. And you need to escape from your box and be this person. It's going to be fascinating to see. I assume that this sweary Jungian psychologist is going to be telling her to dump Murphy from the gun, but also that she's going to draw lines about Strike.
Yeah, I mean, if she's a conventional psychologist, and I don't know how much we can take from the fact that she's going to be a bit sweary, a conventional psychologist shouldn't be advising Robin to dump their partner. She should be facilitating and enabling Robin to come up with the right decision. But
yeah, well, Prudence has pretty much blown up that idea that people really like her, but she's very direct.
Yeah.
So that sounds like she's going to be the sage, the sage crone, I think they call it. This woman that just hits her straight up with her nonsense. The psychologist you're describing sounds like the CBT psychologist that Robin had in Lethal White. That she was largely like, okay, I got the exercises. You're not doing anything for me. You're just making me feel bad. I'm out of here. Maybe she'll be ready for somebody who really makes her feel bad in this next book. Really willing to confront her.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, Vicky, that was great. And I think we've already had more people respond to that and the boxes. So I think Brianna has responded to that, and follow that thread, because that's a live thread right now. How about Sandra Hope? Sandra
Hope is pushing the conversation forward on traditional symbolism. So she writes, I don't know if this counts as artwork, but when Strike and Robin go to Ramsey Silver, a silver orb charm catches her eye, and Ramsey shows her how it opens into a jointed cross, with each joint showing Masonic symbols. The joints have a sort of a pyramid shape, and there's a link. You can see these online.
I'll put it go down below. You'll find it.
Yeah. They continue their interview, in which Ramsey mentions the Oriental Lodge centerpiece, and later in their debrief they see a picture of it in the catalogue Ramsey gave them. Its description included Jacob's ladder and the all-seeing eye, among other things, and I was intrigued by the mention of Jacob's ladder, often depicted in art as a staircase. Meanwhile, Robin was dealing with increasing unease, wondering how much of the subsequent investigation would get back to Ryan, especially when Strike comments about personal loyalties overriding professional duty. And then he mentions Charlotte's suicide note, when he suggests Robin might have to be the one who interviews Sasha, which causes Robin significant agitation and annoyance that Strike chose to speak to her out of the mouth of a dead woman instead of being direct about his own feelings. This tendency of Strike to always be holding his feelings in check, to be rather secretive, parallels the secrecy of the Masons in general, and the secret inside the orb in particular. Interestingly, some of these charms have a capital G on them, which may stand for Gao Tu, great architect of the universe. When later he gives the orb charm to Robin as part of a charm bracelet with other charms that would only be meaningful to them as partners of the agency, she dissolves into tears, reflecting that nothing else anyone gave her today, because it must now be Christmas Day, could possibly mean as much to her. Getting back to Jacob's ladder staircase, when Strike and Hardacre visit the Freemason Museum, Strike asks to see the museum and Temple 17. Now, I don't know if one has to go through the Grand Temple to get to Temple 17, but the ceiling is an incredible mosaic depicting various Masonic symbols, and one panel includes Jacob's ladder. Again, there's a link. Then in Temple 17, Strike sees a large chain swan carved into the wall. I couldn't find a picture of this carving, but it is mainly a heraldic device, although it's been sculptured or made into a brooch. So then I had to look up swans in mythology, and in addition to being shapeshifters, I found a reference to Hans Christian Andersen's The Ugly Duckling. This story, spanning across different eras, explores the timeless concepts of fitting in and changing, showing the evolution of a rejected duckling into a graceful swan. It serves as a strong symbol of personal development and self-discovery, enhancing the idea of the swan as representing internal beauty and self-approval. I immediately thought of Strike because the carving of the chained swan struck with him, and because he's going through personal changes. Wow.
Yeah, seriously, especially as Robin sees the engagement ring as a shackle in a box.
Yeah.
The only other shackle, there's been a reference to a Masonic rite in which you have to roll up your pants sleeve to show that you're not shackled, that you're a free man making this decision. Robin refers to the engagement ring as a shackle, and the only other reference to shackles in this book, I think, are to that shackled swan. In fact, that Robin is, has been the ugly duckling in terms, she's always been a very attractive woman.
Yeah.
And she's always been basically a conformist to meet expectations. She was the compliant child in her family. In this book, we get to see a very different duckling. Linda certainly experiences a very different duckling. Murphy gets to experience this swan, which is a swan is not a duck, right, Nick? This is about like 5 to 10 times the size of a duck, and is a bold animal. It has a certain majesty, and it has a certain aggressive quality to it. And
so in the UK, it's common folklore, and every child will tell you this. Name me one fact about a swan, and that fact will be a swan can break a man's arm. And it's not true, but this is common hedge. This is common hedge knowledge that swans can be careful of swans. They can break your arm.
Geese and swan. We have geese in the United States much more than swans. And if you've ever been chased by a goose, it's not a funny thing.
No, they're better than guard dogs and very territorial. Yeah,
that's right. And in the United States, especially the Canadian geese, have decided that they staying in the parks, not going all the way south because they can be fed in the American parks. They just take over, and unfortunately, they have alimentary canals, Nick, which leave droppings everywhere. Anyway, this post by Sandra is valuable on 3 or 4 different levels. One, it's wonderful. She actually gives us links here to these things so we actually see this. She doesn't talk that much about the image of Jacob's ladder, which I want to go into at some length in the future, but she highlights it in a way I just totally missed it. And we haven't talked about that orb breaking out into a cross.
Yeah.
And that also requires, because the cross and the sphere or circle are images of the same thing, and I think that's what the Masonic image is about. And if you haven't read my stuff about the cross in troubled blood, which is it's the primary symbol of water and troubled blood, or of what it is at King's Cross in Harry Potter, especially that meeting with Dumbledore at the finish of the series. The cross is a representation of the point from which the geometric point from which all things extend. It's quite literally, there it is, point. That you can't understand a cross except in terms as extension from that point.
Yeah.
The circle is exactly the same thing. The circle is you can't see the point there, and yet you can't understand the circle except as it being the set of all points equidistant from the point of origin. So it's the revelation of the center as much as the cross is the revelation of the center. Now that may seem like something horribly metaphysical to you or whatever, but it is why the cross and the circle and even things like the swastika, which is a swirling cross, are all, these are universal symbols across every tradition. Native American. I live in Oklahoma now, and they have pictures of basketball teams, Native American basketball teams from before statehood, and a lot of the teams have uniforms with swastikas on them, Hakenkreuzes or whatever. Yeah. And people are like, "Oh my gosh, they're Nazis." I'm like, "Well, this is about 1907. They're not National Socialists from Germany." But that's a traditional symbol, not only in the Indus Valley and India and the Far East, but also in Native American cultures. That's a revelation of the center, which is about really the spiritual center of the human being. What Sandra has done here is say, "Hey, John, wake up! We've got traditional symbolism to talk about here, and that's supposed to be your thing. How about we get at it?" And I'm sorry I've been talking so much about gaffes and mistakes and things like that. That really this is the essential backdrop, and is one of the 7 tools we talk about in the shed. And this book is rich in it. That's why I think she goes so much with these things. There's also the psychological element of the swan, which is it's the human being in chrysalis, is their transformation. We talk about that all of Rowling's tools are about the purification of the soul for its perfection in the spirit. Not in a religious sense, right? Because Rowling isn't a fundamentalist, but certainly in its spiritual, psychological aspect. And Rowling is portraying, that's what these stories are, is allegorical and anagogical representations of what a human life is about. Soul and spirit being striken and Ellicott in tandem with each other, one being soul, one being spirit to the other's soul. That's the depth of these books. And thank you, Sandra, for slapping me upside the head and saying, "Hey, John, how about we get to your thing?"
But John, we can't move beyond swans without talking about Leda, can we?
No. I mean, it's serious, and the swans are everywhere. We've got Wagnerian interpretations of this. We've got, the swans are a chapter in a book about what the Cormoran Strike series mean. The psychological elements of that, but in this book specifically, what Sandra brings up is the shackle of the swan. Yeah. Now that's specifically, that's as she points out, that's a heraldic device for a specific family or place in the United Kingdom. But in this place, it has the other meaning. It's more profound meaning is that Robin is in chrysalis. Robin is in her purification of soul for perfection and spirit is as painful an event really in this book as the Chapman Farm box was. And we have these backdropped archetypes just dropped in as asides because that's what's really happening inside the story. That's what we're experiencing inside these books. And I think one of the reasons people don't like this book that much is because they identify with Robin, and this is a very uncomfortable book for Robin. This is just when it's, why can't Strike, speak his mind? Why can't we have clarity about these issues? Well, it's because this is a process. You have to, this is a transformation isn't a pill that you take and go to bed and wake up in the morning feeling all better. It's crisis after crisis, and Robin's going through it, and being Robin and being as intelligent as she is and having her heart in the right place, she's sought out help. She's gone to Prudence. Prudence. I mean, if the allegory wasn't that in your face, she goes to the woman whose name means practical wisdom and says, "I need help." And practical wisdom immediately, sets her up with that thing. that's right out of Bunyan, right? That's Pilgrim's Progress. Like,
yeah.
Hey, Mr. Worldly Wise Man, that's go to the woman named Practical Wisdom and get her advice on this. All right, so I'm grateful for Sanders doing that. I can't. This is a whole show. What I'm saying is that the conversation about what this book means is largely being driven by brilliant posts like this that are going to force all of us to pay more attention to that sort of thing. I'm going to read one, Nick.
Okay.
I'm going to do it. All right. I'm going to. This is Justin Clavitt. If I am brutalizing your name, Justin, please forgive me. I don't know if it's Clave or I've never talked to Justin and said, how do I pronounce that? But he the first week he sent me an email. He's one of the I can't say if he's a paid subscriber or not. That would be a violation of confidence. But anyway, he's on the Moderator's back channels, and he immediately wrote to me about these things. Let's start off with some of his questions. I need to comment that I put up a bunch of holding posts on the weblog's Hogwarts Professor site, so people could write things in there. You need to go back and look at that because Ed Shardlow posted all of his thoughts about each part as he read it. What he thought was happening inside the thing. And that was worth reading. I couldn't read along because I was reading it at the same time. I didn't want to get spoiled by it. But if you go back and read it later, you should be astonished by what Ed was talking about each time. One of the things that I'm going to skip ahead here to what Ed said. He pointed out that Strike fears a verdict, Nick, or a charge that's only done legally inside Scotland, not in Wales.
Yeah, that's
and in
right.
England.
So in England and Wales, if you are up before a judge and it goes to a jury deliberates, there's only two verdicts they can come up with: guilty or not guilty. And to be guilty, you must be guilty beyond any reasonable doubt. And that's the job of the defense lawyer, is to try and introduce enough doubt that a jury doesn't want to convict the accused. Now, in Scotland, you have that. You have guilty and you have not guilty. But the jury have a third option that they can decide on, and that is not proven. So that says that the jury thinks that the case isn't strong enough that they can convict you beyond any reasonable doubt. But that doubt isn't strong enough that the jury wants to say you're not guilty. So okay. they will return a verdict of not proven. Now the police hate it because that's basically the jury saying, and the Scottish equivalent of the prosecution service, that's essentially the jury saying is we think he's done it as well, but you haven't come up with a good enough case for us to reach that decision. Now, it looks like the Scottish government is pushing to eliminate that because it is universally unpopular. If I get before a jury in Scotland and they come back with a not proven, it's effectively not guilty. And you leave that court without a stain on your honour, but everyone knows, Nick, yeah, not proven, guilty as hell, wasn't he? It's so yeah. Nobody in Scotland likes it, and it looks like the Scottish government are going to get rid of it. But yeah, this looks like a gaffe. It would be unusual for a London detective to be concerned about what is only and could only be a Scottish verdict. Where this confusion...
Nick, you are so kind. That doesn't look like a gaffe. That is a
yeah.
All of a sudden he becomes John Rebus. This is an Ian Rankin novel. Like what would happen here?
Well, where this confusion probably came from, obviously it'll be in the Scottish papers. So if Rowling reads the Scottish papers, she will see this verdict being referred to. Her sister actually qualified as a lawyer, as an advocate in the Scottish jurisdiction. She was for a relatively short time doing criminal work in the Scottish jurisdiction. So probably her knowledge of the law is largely based around Scotland. But that's something I would expect an editor to pick up on.
Thank you. I mean, it's not like, Rowling hasn't got resources to find this anything. Anyway, I went through all of that because that was I've beaten the short guy gaffe to death, and I've been corrected on that. A wonderful post. Gosh, I should have put it on this list. Where the camera angle thing. Have we talked about that already? The camera angle thing would diminish the height issue. And if Rupert only had one suit, that could be the suit that he was wearing. So my objections to the height thing have been largely relieved. I think I feel relieved about that. But the gaffes about the Strike going crazy inside the Iron Bridge house, so he can avoid the not proven charge.
Yeah,
that's a little nutty. All this to introduce Justin's comment here that the OnlyFans website was launched in November 2016. Yeah. But in the book, The Murdered Sophia is said to be a prolific OnlyFans poster before her disappearance in June of that same year. Now, the OnlyFans account is only a small point in this large plot, but one that is repeatedly referred. I'm reading Justin's thing here. The OnlyFans account is only a small point in this large plot, but one that is repeatedly referred to. And Sophia's OnlyFans account is what ultimately brought her to the attention of her killer. For such a meticulous plotter, and as John would say, OCD author as Rowling is, does this real-world chronological impossibility give you pause? What other big historical error like this can be found in her books? Now, that will take you down a road, but certainly that's a gaffe that a continuity error, editor, and that's a pretty big gaffe there.
Yes, I mean, if we continue to offer our services to Rowling's publishers as proofreaders, utterly trustworthy in the case of we wouldn't leak it, but we would definitely read it early to pick up these points. We have many of our paid subscribers could also join. It would be a team effort. I would imagine if I had picked that up, and I didn't, but if I had picked that up in my read, when I was reporting back to Rowling, I would say I just looked this up just to check. I wasn't really familiar with the website, however.
I confess. I was like, oh yeah, hasn't OnlyFans always existed? Gosh, it's very sad that's become a ubiquitous part of our landscape. All right. Justin goes on. Did you notice that the interview with the porn star occurs in chapter 69? I think Rowling was having a bit of structural fun and winking at the observant reader with that one. All right, let's just go right over that. But yes, I think you're right, Justin. In a recent interview, Rowling stated that she originally wanted to have the crime take place in the London silver vaults. But she determined that it would be impossible. Pamela calls it the fourth most secure building in the world. It's never had a successful theft. When did Rowling first visit the silver vaults? Could this have been an inspiration for Gringotts? Now, we've had this conversation on the threads at some length. I think it is, especially because of the Ollivanders place. But that's Oliver Vanders. That's right. This is great stuff. But here's Justin's big contribution here. That's all that stuff is fascinating, especially the OnlyFans catch. That's a whoops. Again, I don't think Rowling's work is valuable because she gets all this stuff right. It's her mastery of this narrative voice, the consequent misdirection, the archetypal and the traditional symbolism, and the experience that you have of transformation inside these books. What reading does. what writing is for, to create a reading experience that edifies the reader, at least psychologically, and opens the door to authentic spiritual experience. That's what Rowling does. And complaining about the OnlyFans and the height of the murderer and not proven charges in Scotland, this and that. Okay, that's Rowling's not who she is because she gets that stuff right.
No.
But please get someone to help you with that. It's distracting. But Justin really offered all those observations just as an introduction to this it's almost an essay that he shared with me, and I've been sitting on, though we've been alluding to it. I think Nick and I have been just touching on it because we've known this thing exists. So this is all Justin. The biggest thing that struck me in this book was the persistent themes of manhood woven throughout, the responsibilities, relationships, and hardships of men. Now, this is important because we all think of Rowling, especially consequent to the transgender wars, as a TERF, or just as a feminist. That's a serious of a thing, and we certainly through the golden thread of violence against women that we are just hammered all the time, we don't think that she's ever going to write about men. But Justin points out, here we go, the central crime is linked with a secretive fraternal organization. It opens with the death of Strike's father figure, Ted, a proper man, by whose maxims Strike's is newly resolved to live. We learn that Ted would have murdered or been murdered by his father Trevick if he hadn't left home and joined the army, just like Strike would have come to blows or worse with his stepfather Whitaker if he hadn't left home and joined the army. While he loses the man he called his dad in this book, he has a real meeting with his natural father for the first time. Rokeby shares that in Strike, he had produced a proper man. Page 747. Strike celebrates not having fathered a child, while Robin is distraught in the wake of her own lost child and devastated that the option to be a mother may no longer be hers to choose. Richard DeLeon says that his brother Danny was made the way he is because of his father's mistreatment. Strike is bewildered that Danny, who integrates his brother's Christian name into his poor name, Dick DeLeon, and Richard could be so close and share so much with each other, contrasting that with his own relationship with Al and also with Shanker. Lita and Rena are both shown to have suffered because of the absence of their more stable brothers. Strike observes that men are seen as disposable in certain contexts, and he refers to that again and again. Wardle, who is shown to be a caring and dedicated father to his young child, opens up to Strike about his depression and his marriage troubles. Strike reflects on the shallow friendships he has with other men and later sees how this kind of friendship can be toxic with the wrong personalities. And Justin mentions Powell, Pratt, and Jones later on in the book. Strike fears Wardle may be at risk of suicide. Neil is found to have committed suicide after his brother in arms was horrifically executed by Islamicist combatants. The public can't be bothered to care about the tragic loss of this man who heroically put his life on the line for his country, preferring instead to lend their attention to the spectacle of another man, Brandfoot, who went to extreme lengths to indulge his basest and most perverse desires. Like many events in this book, this theme of characters showing genuine concern and thoughtful consideration of complex men's issues is a mirror image, and really a funhouse image, of one presented in Troubled Blood with the character of Carl Oakton and his cynical men's rights grift. Justin says, this barely scratches the surface of the notes that I took on this theme, which I saw running deep throughout the whole book. I wondered if I was just seeing this in the text because of my own perspective as a man, or if it really was there. Indeed, you could find hints of this theme in each of the preceding 7 books, but the structural clues left me convinced it was intentional. And when I watched this video, and the video is at the Robert Galbraith site, Robert Galbraith discusses the case in The Hallmarked Man. The day after finishing the book, there was no doubt. Have you watched that video, Nick?
Yes, I have.
And what is he talking about?
So basically, she is talking about the how men can be in vulnerable positions. So this is absolutely an intentional theme by Rowling.
Yeah, and seriously, um, I appreciate your humility here, and that I wondered if I was just seeing this in the text because of my perspective as a man. Very humble, but you've made the case, Justin, that this is definitely a theme, and it's Nick. You've pointed out that Strike is not the man that he normally is inside this book, and yet this is the book that is most about being a man. And Strike, though he's largely feminine in his response to, say, Wardle, he decides he's going to take care of his brother here in a way that you certainly couldn't imagine him doing in the first book.
No.
That Wardle's, he senses that Wardle is not only depressed, but that he may be suicidal, and he is there for him and offers him a job and a place and appreciation and respect. And they go at it in Ironbridge, and that promises a future conflict. But Wardle hasn't been treated with that much respect in a long time.
No, and I think, and I hope Strike will reflect that actually Wardle probably saved Strike in Ironbridge. I mean, not just from legal repercussions, but from his own conscience.
Yeah. I mean, Strike's, bleeding profusely and is not on his best game. He was on his best game. It was brilliant what he does there. But you're right. Wardle is that check. Wardle, in effect, becomes Strike's caretaker the way Strike had been his caretaker earlier in the book. And that brotherhood is a theme that women, I don't think women would do that. That isn't that same kind of relationship of stand you up and knock you down type thing, and let's do the right thing together here. It's an amazing exploration of men's issues that I don't think we've seen before in Rowling's work.
No, certainly not with this clarity.
No, not in that. This, and the fact that she talks about it in a video. Hello, this is what I'm talking about. Justin, you're not crazy. So, just as I thanked Sandra for saying, "Hey, John, how about the traditional symbolism? This is supposed to be your shtick." So again, hats off to Justin for saying we've got an entirely different story going on here. It's all been about women's issues and violence against women and how bad men are, et cetera, especially things like Career of Evil.
Yeah.
That was pretty much violence porn. Here we have a book that, though we have violence against women, and so it's about Robin's psychological agonies and transformation. This book is also about a man's struggle. How do men bond and spend time in. It's one thing. It's probably in Justin's notes that he didn't share here is the conversation he has with Robin about why men do things like masonry, Freemasonry, and Strike has to say, well, we don't get together for the way women do, and this is kind of a men's club type thing. And then who does he meet? He meets one of his old friends, Hardacre, and Hardacre is talk about hail fellow well met. He can't cook, because that's a woman's job. This kind of thing. All right. Other thing, and there's other stuff from Justin here. I wish I could go through all of it, but one of the things I wanted to read was this note. I connected the book's dedication to Sean and Nadine Harris with Rokby's statement on page 748. Not everyone's got a mate called Leo who stops them living rough, and that he attributes his artistic and financial success to his friends' generosity and charity. Now, Nick, go ahead, Nick, and explain that, because that's so good.
Sorry, my hat is coming off. That's that's so when I'm looking for my inspirations. That's the kind of thing really I should be spotting. So bravo. Yeah, absolutely. So Sean Harris, that was the foul weather friend when she was in Edinburgh with the daughter, sleeping on a couch in your sister's one-bedroom flat really isn't going to cut it for very long. Got some council accommodation, and Sean at that point offered to help find some private accommodation, come up with the money for the deposit. Rowling said no, thank you. Got some council accommodation, was not really suitable. Decided she really did need to find a private rented flat, and Sean came up with the money to allow her to make a deposit. And you know, he we've talked about it before. I've written about it on Hogwarts Professor. It is the lifelong friend, and it was that generosity, and actually the generosity of another lady who lent some money later on, that really allowed Rowling first to qualify as a teacher, and then to really dedicate herself to finishing that first book, to finishing the Philosopher's Stone. So when you have Rokeby saying he attributes his artistic and financial success to his friend's generosity and charity, the lady who wrote that knew what she was talking about. You know, Sean Harris
she dedicated. It's a quick question. Do you know when Sean Harris marries?
No, we don't. And until really this book, we weren't sure of his wife's name.
Well, I'm gonna assume here, and obviously that with entirely speculation, but that Nadine Harris was in the picture at that point and had been part of Sean's generosity. You know, here's a man giving money to a woman. If he has any kind of relationship, that would be a problematic thing with the other woman, right? And yeah. I think that picture of her with Nadine in the restaurant Coamment Masonic Temple is that she is a very dear friend as well. All right, back to how about we take a break from this,
okay,
and talk about Rowling hasn't tweeted in a week.
No.
Now, you know, the world is not shifted on its axis when Rowling doesn't tweet for a week, but that usually means that she's somewhere that she's just not connected to things.
No.
And we saw that with the whole Iceland, Greenland, tour or whatever.
She likes going to remote places, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does. She does. And so I think we should have a feature maybe once a month. We talk about just where is she? Now, if she's not, because and here's an astonishing thing to me is with all the clickbait, that Rowling is gold for clickbait, right? I mean, if you put her name in any kind of headline, you're going to get people to, oh, what's she doing? No one's talked about where she is or what she's doing. I haven't seen anything online, but I think there are rumors, right? There are rumors, about the yacht being out at sea or something.
Yeah. So the yacht is at sea. There is credible information that it's in the middle of the Pacific, and there is very credible information that 24 hours ago and 48 hours ago, that yacht was at a little place called Bora Bora. Now, John, I know you've served in the Pacific. Where is Bora Bora?
Well, I was on the Pacific Rim.
Okay.
Which is as far from Bora Bora. I mean, that's like saying that somebody in San Francisco is stationed in the Pacific. That's Bora Bora is many miles east of Tonga, which is where American aircraft carriers go to wait on NASA spacecraft returning to Earth. This was where Americans land their spacecraft so that if it goes 150 miles or 1,000 miles off, it'll still land in the water. It's not going to hit. It's not going to hit San Bernardino when they were aiming for the high desert of Southern California. Now that's this just absolute forsaken place. It's just water, Nick. I mean,
so am I right in saying when you say the Pacific Rim is pretty far from Bora Bora, essentially everything is pretty far from Bora Bora?
That's right. This is the place you would go. It's in the northern South Pacific. It's equidistant really between South America and Antarctica and New Zealand.
Wow.
This makes Diego Garcia look like Times Square or Piccadilly Circus. I mean, this is so far out there. Now, there's been rumors of her going to the Galapagos Islands before, which is kind of in the same neighborhood.
Well, it was a leak, really. So it was the news a story was leaked to the papers shortly before Rowling and Dr. Neil Murray were due to get married, that she had hired a boat. She was going to get married in the Galapagos. I mean, can you imagine? And I'm sure it's the kind of theatricality, we've seen one or maybe two photographs of her parties, but the lady knows how to plan a good party, and she'd planned the Galapagos Islands. Well, as soon as this story broke, you couldn't hire a yacht within about 4,000 nautical miles of the Galapagos. People were dusting off their long lens. It was going to be like the Spanish Armada all over again. So Rowling cancelled essentially the trip, the wedding, everything. And as we know, December that year, she secretly got married in her estate. Now, obviously, Rowling wanted to go to the Galapagos. Did she go after that? Has she been before that? We don't know.
But if you have a good yacht, Nick, why don't you want to go to Bora Bora? I mean,
yes,
on everybody's lifetime. It's like a birder's list, and you've got to go to Bora Bora.
I mean, big cruise ships used to go to Bora Bora, but this is, as John says, the passengers have to put up with a lot of time at sea to get there. And it's really not a very big place. So when you've got one of these big monstrosities with thousands and thousands of people on board that all disembark at the same time, essentially, you're with the same people, just on a drier bit of the Earth's surface. So the local authorities, this I should say, this is in French Polynesia. So this is actually a part of metropolitan France. They speak French out there. They use the euro as currency. It's essentially it's a part of Europe in the Pacific. So looking at the navigation maps, it's the only shipping around there essentially is a very rare container ships to supply the inhabitants and tourists, and pleasure yachts, and not many pleasure yachts. So we don't know, has Rowling gone there because she wants to go to Bora Bora? Is she going elsewhere in the South Pacific? So there is New Caledonia, merely a few thousand miles to the east. Yeah, then there's New Zealand, and of course Australia. Hence my Australian hat. We don't know. We know just a few years ago when they opened Harry Potter and the Cursed Child in Australia, the Australian edition, she said in an interview she'd never been to Australia, and maybe this was going to be her opportunity. Then came 2020 and the transgender scandal, and that never really happened. So she's never visited the Cursed Child production. But maybe
it was also COVID, Nick.
And there was
Australia shut down.
Yeah, Australia was fairly strict, not as strict as New Zealand was. These island countries, John, we do not like people to import viruses to us. So
plague scars, Nick. We're talking 14th century plague scars you people have. Anyway, this whole discussion. I know people, they accuse us of being lake dredgers and stuff like that, but this is a marker, isn't it, Nick? For maybe a future story is going to be set in Bora Bora.
Yes, maybe. I mean, we know that the Greenland trip, although it was a fantastic holiday, and I have some friends who are astonished she'd want to go and visit bleak glacial landscapes, but it looked beautiful to me. But we know there was at least some research going on there. She met a Greenlandic author who wrote a book on myth and mythology in Greenland. That seemed very researchy to me. We know when she went to Iceland, she visited the Icelandic Witchcraft Museum. We got some quite good photographs of her visiting that. And we know she writes wherever she goes. So it would not surprise me that something she discovers on this trip appears in one of her books.
Well, I'm hopeful that we get a Bora Bora adventure. I do think she only went to Greenland, though, because she wanted to visit it before it became the 51st United States. Anyway, back to reader comments.
I thought that was going to be Canada, John.
Yeah. Well, we're working on it. We're working on it, Nick. Trump always wins, so just stand by. All right. There was talk, and good talk. Evan Willis largely led it, about what was going to happen in the 8th Strike novel, because all of the previous Strike novels had been written in loving parallel to their opposite number in the Harry Potter series. And for that, there's a name for that, Nick. What is that called? Parallel series idea.
Yes.
PSI. Yeah. And that parallel series idea worked just wonderfully through the 7th book. I mean, every one of the books was in parallel with its opposite number. So what was book 8 going to be? A lot of Louise Freeman Davis wrote a funny thing, I thought, about it being Cursed Child. Nobody liked it, that this Hallmarked man was Cursed Child, obviously, because people threw Cursed Child across the room, and they threw Hallmarked man across the room in frustration. That's fun as far as it goes. But that Ed Shardlow, we're back to Ed again. This is obviously the story turn, right, Nick? We're halfway done or something.
Yeah.
We're back to Ed Shardlow. He came up with the idea that it's the Ichabod. That's the parallel theory. And that would make sense in a way, because the Ichabod was something that Rowling was working on while she was writing the Harry Potter series, even though it comes much later in terms of the publication sequence. The Ichabod would be the next book. I thought that Iron Bridge the Town, the book opening with the death of a good guy father figure by stroke, and the peanut allergy, all that made me think Casual Vacancy was the sure thing template for Strike 8. But I think Ed makes a better case for this. You want to do your best Ed Shardlow voice, Nick?
I'll do my best Ed Shardlow. So he writes, and with the Ichabod theory, conscious of the links between the first 7 books of the series and the Potter books, and with 3 books purportedly remaining in the series, I was primed to see a connection between Hallmark Man and one of Casual Vacancy, Christmas Pig, or the Ichabod. I didn't have any predisposition to it being any of those. If Rowling is taking them in some sort of chronological order, there's reason to believe the orders of conception, writing, and publishing may differ. At the end of part 1, I thought the Ichabod, just as you did, John, looked like the best fit based on the fact the central mystery of who the body in the vault was has a certain similarity to the mystery of the Ichabod itself and whether it was real or a myth. The importance of the truth and the damage done by lies are fundamental to the Ichabod story. And I thought from the start, those were major themes in The Hallmarked Man. The other correspondences I've spotted. So we have the police in various guises, like the Royal Guard, play an important role, largely inept, self-serving, and perpetrators of miscarriages of justice, as is traditional in detective fiction. The aristocrats, Lord Bramford, Lady Jensen, Dino Lancaster, lie and deceive to protect their own interests, causing untold damage in the process. There's terrorism, and terrorism being used to spread fear and division. Ultimately, Rupert and Decima, two sexes but one entity, produce an offspring, this is so good, that may have been defective or corrupted by the state of the world he was born into, but seems to have emerged happy and healthy. Daisy Dovetail, having persuaded Rupert, the Ichabod, that humanity was worth making compromises for. The main antagonist traps a woman in his house. I thought their names were Esmeralda and Sapphire, but it's Lady Esmeralda, Lady Eslander, not Esmeralda. I misremembered as well, Ed. You're not on your own. But apparently Eslander can mean emerald or violet or truth. So Eslander corresponds to both Sapphire and Jolinda. We visit a feudal state, the last feudal state in Europe. Ben Liddell, the soldier killed in an incident in a land where there shouldn't have been any military conflict happening, and it being covered up by the government. And so Ed gets some responses. So Sandy Hope. Ed Shardlow, I can't wait for your show on the parallels between THM and the Ichabod. I just finished rereading both of them and I'm losing my mind. OMG. The footprint, the flaw in the plan, chapter 32, is that the footprint is hopping, not so much terrifying as ludicrously funny, and Strike noting the bearer of the footprint in the vault has a limp. Wow.
And Ed responded saying, I missed the footprint, you know.
Yeah.
And that's anyway, those are all really good.
Yeah.
You inserted something in there, Nick, that like John thought. I didn't think the Ichabod looked like the best fit. All of that was a revelation to me. I didn't that this is totally Ed. And I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
But there's one problem, Nick. And that is that there are so many references to so many books inside this book.
Yes.
I mean, this in a way, instead of being just references to one book or parallels and correspondences with books inside the series or to Harry Potter novels or to anything, it's like running a greatest hits piece. Or maybe it was just a laugh riot about the parallel series idea. Like, you want references to my books? Here's references to my books. You know, she has to drive people that are living and charting the series, trying to find a shape to the series, and say, okay, you know, here's the full set. You'll find links to every single book I've ever written inside this thing. Now, I know that. I think almost every reader, especially on rereads, is doing I know where I've heard that phrase before. But Sandra Hope in the very first week sent a bunch of questions. You know, she says she sent me a list, illusions that took my breath away. You know, she starts and then she goes through them. Ectopic pregnancy, troubled blood.
Yeah,
that's Theodosia there. Schadenfreude. That's Cuckoo's Calling. So many babies, not just born, but what they're born into. And that's the Ichabod Borndings that Ed noted as well. Yeah. The human trafficking ring with Running Grave. Woman buried in or under concrete. Troubled Blood. Now you notice other people are writing in with these things as well. Yeah. I mean, this is something that everybody is doing. I've seen that before. Staged murder involving mutilation. Well, that's the silkworm. I think all of us got that. It's just like, whoa, this is nuts. Violent attacks and subsequent PTSD. It's a rolling theme in every book, Sandra notes, but especially in Career of Evil and Lethal White. DNA testing and fatherhood. Okay. Now, she says casual vacancy. I'm struggling with that one. Is there DNA testing?
No, so that's not so much DNA testing. That is at least strongly suspected
incest.
Incest, yeah.
Okay, now that makes sense. All right, and then Troubled Blood.
Yeah,
got that. Guys trying to find the right time to ask a potential partner a question. And she says, laugh out loud, goblet of fire, right?
Yeah.
It's so true. Valentine's Day mishaps. And she puts down Chamber of Secrets and Troubled Blood. Really, we need to do a show just on Valentine's Day. We did some of that with the Cupid and Psyche thing, but Valentine's Day is as important in this series because of the Cupid and Psyche template as, say, Christmas. This is a big deal, Valentine's Day, because that's the only, day devoted to not only men and women's relationship, but literally to Cupid. Beware abandoned mothers. She's got Silkworm and Half-Blood Prince, specifically Merope and Leonora and Decima, also Leda. Journalism as a weapon. Goblet of Fire, Order of the Phoenix, Silkworm, Running Grave. She doesn't say ... but
golden thread, yeah.
Yeah, that's a golden thread, right? And then the potential ill usage of mirrors. Now that I thought was fascinating. She mentions Sorcerer's Stones there, but I think she probably means Goblet of Fire as much as that. You have the faux glass in that one, and then even in Deathly Hallows, with mirrors are a big deal in that book because of the illusion of subject and object. That's
Sorcerer's Stone, I guess, is the Erised mirror.
Right. But that's anyway. So Sandra's point is. She ends off her list by saying, not a complete list by any means, laugh out loud. And so true. This would have to be a whole show, rolling, dropping fun, echoes and allusions of things that she said in previous books, and that readers do rolling readers do this kind of shocking, oh, wow, how about that? Interesting, we still haven't had any references flat out to Harry Potter, which is really astonishing.
Yeah.
In it being unrealistic.
So we've had Emma on the cover of a magazine, haven't we? And that's it. Yeah. Nobody asked, where do I know her from? Yeah.
Yeah, she's not nearly as famous as Charlotte Campbell is. All right, so that's the only problem I see in Ed's Ichabod connection. And anybody who's dealing with correspondences in the series right now and drawing lines between books and all these things is, come on, this is if you want to play that game, you're going to wind up with, I don't know, some sort of Etch-a-Sketch nightmare of connecting lines between things. But we'll see. I mean, really, looking back on it, compared to Cormoran Strike, it looks like the Harry Potter series was a very primitive turtleback structure. I don't think it's quite a turtleback structure because of the relationships between 3 and 7 and 1 and 5, but that it looks relatively straightforward. You see a lot of connections between books and they're inside that one series. You get a shape.
Yeah.
I will note that it took me 3 years after the last book came out to see it, and that I was the first among tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people that have read the books to note that structure. So it wasn't that obvious. But compared to that, seeing the relationships between the Strike novels and how they work with each other and how they work with other books is not nearly as straightforward. Anyway, that's conversations that are going on that I'm loving inside these threads. Then we had another person whose name I think they just want to be known as LC. That she writes, I don't know if there's anything in my seeing parallels between Cormoran and Robin and Peter Wimsey and Harriet Vance, the Dorothy Sayers series. Peter and Harriet had a very long acquaintance before they finally got engaged with lots of twists and turns. Peter goes deep undercover in an ad agency in one novel. The feel of it was very similar to Robin going deep undercover in Lethal White. Also, the Sayers novel 5 Red Herrings also features 5 men. 5 men who could have been the murderer instead of the victim. Sayers also had very intricate plots that were puzzles and was a Dante scholar. I believe Jo has mentioned that she admired Sayers. She did. She didn't like that series so much, but I don't know if these are just interesting parallels that Jo's having fun with, but they certainly seem to be more than coincidences. Thanks. That's a great catch. Yeah. And it should be something that we're talking about because clearly the most famous long-running series by a golden age woman novelist and a woman that had pregnancy issues, right, with a secret child and such in their background. That's the closest parallel with Dorothy Sayers is the closest parallel with what Roland Galbraith is doing here. I want to bounce past that though to Beatrice Groves. This is a literary illusion question, and no one knows, I think, the British mystery scene, especially the Golden Age mystery scene, better in the Potter Pundit, Rolling Reader, Serious Striker milieu than Beatrice Groves. I'm going to pass that over to B. And Elsie, great catch, and thank you for highlighting that. That's something that we just haven't talked about here, and we need to talk about is the relationship between Dorothy Sayers and J.K. Rowling. The last thing we have got here, Nick, is Kathleen O'Connor's alternative incest big twist ideas. And I'm not going to read the whole. I'm going to put it in the notes, all the things that Kathleen says here, but. And she reviews all of the resemblances and the differences between Strike and Rokeby, and she does it, really in a persuasive fashion. And
yeah, it's really forensically, it's such an impressive piece of work.
Yeah, but she speculates finally that would it be possible for Trevick to have met up with Patricia Whitaker in London and gotten her pregnant? Okay, this is. A fascinating spin on the incest angle. It may be a bit of a stretch, but really what I love about this Kathleen O'Connor contribution is that she's focusing on the thing that almost all of us there's a big ooh factor in it, a yuck factor in the whole incest angle. And yet I think it's clearly something that's going to be part of what we see in 9 and 10. Yeah. And Kathleen, as you said, she makes a pretty compelling case based on what we see inside these books. I'm going to put this stuff in the notes. It's too good to do cursily. All right, I'm scrolling down here. Nick, I want to talk about one other thing. I want to talk about an election in the UK that happened very close to you.
Yes. So we've had a by-election in Wales. So a by-election is where a seat is vacated for some reason, and we need to elect a new member of Parliament, either for Westminster or locally. And this one was in Caernarfon, which is in South Wales, and fairly unexpectedly, the successful candidate was a member of the party called Plaid Cymru, which is that's Welsh for the Party of Wales, which is the they don't like to be called Welsh nationalist anymore, but if I describe them as Welsh nationalist, you'll get the idea. So they are for Wales, more autonomy for Wales, and eventually independence for Wales. Now, this isn't a traditional Plaid Cymru voting area, and you can. I don't know if obviously in Scotland it's the SNP, the Scottish National Party, and it's sort of their equivalent here in Wales. Now, even if they take a majority of the Welsh seats, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to get a vote for independence. I think it's less likely for a country the size of Wales. We really are quite tiny. However, it was a bit of a shock. This seat has been returning Labour candidates for at least the last 100 years. Now, most of those elections would have been general elections rather than by-elections, but even so, it's still a swing. I think what's more surprising is Labour didn't even come in second place. They came in third place to the Reform candidate. I sort of predicted this in my conversations with John. So in Westminster, we have sort of a supermajority. So we have a large majority of Labour seats. Absent any particular revolt within the Labour ranks, Labour can do essentially what they want, and everything they put before Parliament will get passed through because they have a majority. Nobody in British politics really likes such a strong majority. It's more a reflection of how poor the previous government was. So I'm not surprised, and we're probably going to see a few more surprises again before the next general election. What's even more surprising than Labour coming third was how poorly the Conservatives did. Now, in a Welsh seat, Conservatives don't tend to do well unless it's in a particularly prosperous area. My own local area tends to flip between Conservative and Wales, but it's one of the few regions that would ever even consider voting in a Conservative member. But even so, the Conservatives did especially poorly. And I think their issue is they need to work out what their brand is going to be for the next general election. I think they and Labour have wisely chosen not to elect a charismatic leader of their party. I think we've had a very charismatic Prime Minister, and now the stories are coming out of what happened behind the scenes during his term as Prime Minister. I'm hoping that sensible electorates would decide, let's just get somebody competent in. But having said that, Reform is doing really quite well, and Nigel Farage
there's the Ichabod in the room. I was
a charismatic man.
I was waiting for you to mention that Farage
Yeah.
is the closest thing to a Donald Trump on the political landscape in Europe.
Yeah.
And that the vote for the Welsh party was largely seen as a Labour attempt to not have Farage take this giant victory, because Farage and the Reform Party have been polling in extraordinary fashion. That if there were an election tomorrow, that they would have a supermajority in Parliament, and that's an absolute sea change. It's that the tide is shifting faster than that one in the Bristol Channel. And that's the I think Rowling may be going to Bora Bora in case that Farage comes into power. That she may be looking for a new place to live. That she'd like to be as far away from. And that's the reason I bring this up is one. This is never this South Wales election was all the news in the United Kingdom. If you read the Daily Mail like I do, it was front and center even in the U.S. editions. And it was nowhere mentioned in any of the other news things that I follow. And yet this sea change in the United Kingdom on the MAGA model, make Britain great again or whatever, is a that and of course it was happening in France and what's already happened in Japan, what's happening in Italy, strikes it really there is a world that Rowling as what she's considered to be a moderate liberal in the United Kingdom. Of course, she's hard leftist in the United States. Just dreads. And I just thought that was funny that she's in Bora Bora while in Wales they're doing everything they can to keep Farage from Well,
of course, in the UK, but the Wales is 2 countries away from where Rowling lives, and I think the Plaid Cymru is in the old days they sort of looked at the SNP as aspirational. This was a party that managed to get a majority in their own parliament. The majority of Scottish MPs going to Westminster were SNP. They managed to turn public opinion in Scotland such that they could see a majority voting for independence. They got their independence vote, all the stuff that Plaid would love to do. Well, SNP's sort of out of their honeymoon now.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, their majority is dwindling like mist. They've had their independence vote and Scotland voted no. All of the polling since then has been going worse, saying, no, we can see what SNP is doing to our government here in Scotland. We don't want to be independent so that they don't have any checks and balances in Westminster. So Plaid is no longer mentioning the SNP as something that they want to imitate. I think, like the SNP, there'll be no vote for independence unless they can be fairly confident of a majority, and then it'll be all sticks out going for it.
Still, to me, the big news in that election was that reform was UK reform was polling at 2% in Wales. And in this election, they got 36% of the vote. And we're barely shy of having the plurality of votes inside Wales. That would be like California swinging hard red in the United States, because Wales is it was the engine between really the socialist movement after the Second World War. The NHS is really put together by a Welshman, right? I mean, this is
the birth of the NHS was in Tredegar. Yes, so it's invented here.
This is the socialist beating heart of the United Kingdom, and they put 36% of their votes with Farage. This is like a second Brexit vote. This is astonishing.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't want to appear complacent, because we see in America what happens when the left becomes complacent. But there's
they overreach, spectacularly.
Yeah.
And that's really the whole this reflects on the transgender issue as well, is that, Labor has been at best wishy-washy on the transgender issue, and there's been the negative response, and there's the immigration issue, the same things that are driving things in the United States that are making people say, let's pull back a little bit. When the left, just seems to be, the elite seem to be oblivious to these things, then we get these populist response. Anyway, that's all news, because it's Rowling is tremendously engaged with those issues, and I believe that they're going to color books 9 and 10 as she's writing them. In some respect, and clearly, these books have been planned for what, 10, 15 years now. But this is just like Ink Black Heart. She may have had that plotted as an internet book, but boy, was it did it show the spirit of the years in which it was written. I think we're going to see this election and this swing towards reform, which was, again, big news in the United Kingdom, totally overlooked inside the United States. It's going to show in the last two books. I think Rowling's probably going to be pushing back against this. She's not a Brexiteer. She's just like, she despises men like Farage and Trump. And there's that. Just one quick note before we go. I know we're way over time. I just want to say that over on the paid subscriber front, I'm sending out today this lecture that I gave in 2017 as part of my Wizard Reading Formula class about ring composition. I really want, before I get into the parts of Hallmarked Man, I really want to describe why we're concerned at all about ring composition, what Rowling is after in that structure, if she indeed is using it, which is kind of a presupposition of what we're doing here. And that goes back to that cross and circle image, because that really is what ring composition is about, chiastic structure, that it's about the experience of reading, and that the meaning is in the middle, and that the structure all has to be resolved to that center point, and that's what she's after in the purification of soul for its perfection in spirit. If you're interested in the conversation, join the paid subscriber list. If you're willing to wait for it to come up, we're going to get, obviously all that stuff will be public eventually. And thank you to all the people that are subscribing. It's really exciting to see the number of paid subscribers go up. And it's so gratifying every day to wake up and see likes. We've got a lot of likes on all of the threads we've done on Hallmarked Man. Lots of comments that have been challenging, really driving the conversation here. I didn't talk about the conversation we had. I should have brought this up about how to read the books. That we don't want to, here what we do is we stand just one step back from talking about Strike and Robin as if they're real people and what real people should be doing and that kind of thing. And you step back just one step and to appreciate the artistry and the meaning that Rowling is delivering. And that's what we're doing here. Thank you for all of you out there that are joining this conversation. Thank you, Nick, for editing these things and making them possible. To all the paid subscribers, I'll be running you this afternoon and sending you something out.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.